Hello friends, I am Professor Rajendra Koranne from my YouTube channel Teach Easy. In this video, we will start with the next unit, that is bolted connections. Now whenever any structure is built, it has number of members and those number of members are necessary to be connected to each other. Okay, and for this purpose the connections are required. For example, if it is a roof truss, it has got number of members. Those number of members are connected to each other, and for that purpose we required the connection. That is the need of the connection. Now let us see what is the purpose of the connection. Okay. Now we saw that the different members are to be connected to each other, so that those different members will form a structure as a whole, as one unit. Now what is the purpose of the connections? In short, what is the function of the connections? Now through the connections, the forces and moments are transferred from one member to another member. These forces are transferred up to the foundation. So this is the main purpose of the connections, to facilitate the flow of forces and movements from one member to another. So this is the purpose, this is the function of connections. Now, whenever we consider a structure, connection is the weaker link in between the different members which are connected, and the failure of the connection is not ductile. What happens due to this? As it is not ductile, it is sudden, which does not give any prior intimation of failure, and the failure of connection, as it is sudden, is responsible for the failure of a structure as a whole. For that purpose, the strength of the connection should be more than the strength of the member. If any particular member fails, that can be replaced. But if the connection fails, it will be responsible for complete collapse of the structure. Okay? So this is very important for the proper design of connection. So why it is necessary to design the connections properly, do you understand? Because connection is the weaker link and its failure is sudden. We have to avoid that failure. So for that purpose, a proper design should be done as far as connections are concerned. In short, what is our objective of connections? The connection should be safe, simple and economical. Whatever connection we are making, it should be safe, simple and economical. Now these structural connections can be done with the help of fasteners, that are rivets and bolts, or it can be done by welding also. So structural connections can be riveted connection, can be bolted connection, can be welded connection. Now these riveted connections are nowadays obsolete, not at all used. They are obsolete due to following reasons. Because the process of riveting requires the preheating of rivets. More labor is required for riveting. As rivets are placed by hammering, it requires more space it requires skilled supervision also. At the same time, as the process is done by hammering, this process is noisy, making noise pollution. So these are the some reasons preheating is required, more labor is required, more space is required, supervision and noise pollution. These are the reasons due to which this process of riveting has become obsolete. They are not at all used nowadays. Now the second way is the connections are done with the help of fasteners which are known as bolts. So these connections are known as bolted connection. And for that purpose, let us first see what do we mean by a bolt. Now look here. Bolt is a mild steel rod or pin having hexagonal or square head at one end and the shank which has got threads to receive the nut at the other end. Therefore, do you understand? What is this? This is bolt, this is head of bolt, this is the shank of the bolt which has got threads. Why threads are given? To receive the nut. This is the nut. What is this? Bolt. What is this? Nut. Okay? Now, these are the washers. So, washers are placed between the head of the bolt and the member. The member will be there. One more washer will be placed over here, and then this nut will be placed like this. Do you follow this? So, what is a bolt? Again, I will repeat. Bolt is a mild steel rod or a pin having square or hexagonal head at one end and the shank having the threads on it to receive the nut, that is known as bolt. Do you follow this? Now let us see what are different types of commonly used bolts. The first type of bolts are known as black bolts. Now these black bolts are ordinary bolts. They are unfinished, rough. They are least expensive, cheaper in cost. Commonly used bolts. They are used for light structures, the structures of less importance, and temporary structures. Most important thing, these black bolts are not recommended for the connections subjected to impact or fatigue or dynamic loads. So black bolts are not recommended for the members subjected to impact, members subjected to fatigue, members subjected to dynamic loads. Generally, these bolts are expressed as M20. So black bolts of M20 means M, they are represented by M, and this 20 is the nominal diameter of the bolt. Do you understand? So first type of bolts are black bolts. Now let us see some advantages of black bolts over rivets. and welds. The first one, simple tools are required for bolting these bolts. Second one, no skilled labor is required. Third one, no specialized equipment is required. Fourth one, minor discrepancies can be eliminated. The next advantage is this process is noiseless. No noise pollution is there. Sixth advantage is readiness to support loads. In case of riveting, as it is heated to red hot, you have to wait till it cools. This is not the case in bolting. As soon as you have tightened all washers and nuts, the structure is ready to support loads. Okay? The next advantage is speedy in construction. No lapse of time for cooling. That is what I have told you. You have not to wait till that bolt, in case of rivet, you have to wait till the rivet cools. This is not the case here. And the next advantage is easy to dismantle and reuse the materials. So these are some of the advantages of black bolts. Very important one. First one, simple tools are required. No skilled labor is required. No specialized equipment is required. Minor discrepancies can be eliminated very easily. Process is noiseless. Readiness to support the loads. As soon as the nut is tightened, the structure is ready to support the load. No lapse of time for cooling. Speedy in construction and easy to dismantle and reuse. Okay? So this is regarding the first type of bolt which is commonly used is black bolt. Now the second type of bolts which are commonly used are high strength bolt. High strength bolts. Now we saw mild steel and the black bolts are made up of mild steel because it is a mild steel pin. These high strength bolts are made from medium carbon steel. Generally, the property class of 8.8 and 10.9 are very common in these high strength bolts. What is property class? We will see after this. Okay? So high strength bolts are made from medium carbon steel. Generally, minimum property class is 8.8 and 10.9 are commonly used high strength bolts. Now, they are expressed like this: 8.8. S or 10.9 S. What does S indicate? 8.8 S. What is 8.8? That we will see. This S indicates the highest strength bolt with hexagonal head. The head is hexagonal in shape. 8.8 S or 10.9 S. What S represents? It indicates the high strength bolts with hexagonal heads. Now, why these bolts are known as high strength bolts? Because these bolts are induced with initial tension. Initially, the tension is induced in these bolts. Okay? So, bolts with initial induced tension are called as high strength bolt. Amongst these high strength bolt, the most commonly used high strength bolts are HSFG. HSFG, that is high strength friction grip bolts. Okay, try to understand this. H high, S strength, F friction, G grip. HSFG bolts are very commonly used. High strength friction grip bolts. Now look here. What happens due to the initial tension induced in that? Due to this initial tension, extra clamping force is developed. See, this is one plate, this is another plate. Okay, so they are lap jointed, and say this is the bolt which is used. Okay, now if it is high strength bolt, whenever the nut will be tightened, extra clamping force will be developed. Okay, and due to this, what happens? These two plates will not be able to move over each other. Okay, if clamping force is not there, they may slip. But due to initial tension, pre-tension, there will be extra clamping force which will not allow the slip in between the two plates which are connected. Okay, now let us see the advantages of HSFG bolts. See, we already saw the advantages of black bolts. Now let us see what are the advantages of HSFG bolts. Now definitely this HSFG bolt you can use for members which are subjected to impact, dynamic load, everything. For important structures also you can use it, which was not possible in the case of black bolts. Okay, so let us see the advantages of HSFG bolt. Just now I have explained the first advantage is do not allow slip. HSFG bolts do not allow the slip between the two plates connected. I have told you the reason. Second, the loads are transferred by friction only, friction between the two plates. Now, as these bolts are high strength bolts, the number of bolts required are less. As number of bolts are less, the dimensions of gusset plate is reduced. In short, the connection becomes economical. The process is noiseless. And the fifth one is deformations are minimized. As no slip is allowed, there is a very less possibility of deformation. Okay. Now, while explaining you high strength bolts, I have told you one thing, that is minimum property class grade is 8.8S. Now let us see what do you mean by property class or grade of bolts. Let us see what do we mean by property class. In short, it is the grade. Now generally, the bolts of property class 4.6, 8.8, 10.9 are available. 4.6 grade is available in black bolts. Minimum grade in high strength bolt is 8.8. Okay. Now let us see what do we mean by this property class. Now if I say that property class of the bolt is 4.6, what does it mean? Let us see now. This first figure 4 indicates, and this 0.6 indicates what? That we will see. Now this first 4 indicates that it is 1/100th of the ultimate tensile strength of bolt, that is FUB upon 100 in Newton per mm square. So if I say that FUB upon 100 is equal to 4, that means FUB is equal to 100 into 4, that is 400 Newton per mm square is the ultimate stress in the material of the bolt if its class is 4.6. Do you follow this? Now, what is the meaning of 0.6? It is the ratio of yield stress of the bolt to the ultimate stress of the bolt. Okay? So, this is equal to 4 and this is equal to 0.6. Therefore, I can say that for bolts of property class 4.6, ultimate tensile strength in the bolt will be 4 into 100, that is, yes, 400 Newton per mm square. For this one, now we have calculated FUB, so I can write FYB upon FUB is calculated, that is 400 is equal to 0.6. Therefore, FYB, that is yield strength of material of the bolt, is 0.6 into 400, that is 240 Newton per mm square. To be precise, in short, if you multiply this first figure into 100, you will get ultimate tensile stress in material of the bolt, and to that ultimate stress, if you multiply it by 0.6, you will get the yield stress. Okay? So in this video, we saw what is the need of connection, purpose of connection, what is the necessity of proper design of connection, then different connection, why riveted connections are obsolete. Then we saw bolt, nut, types of bolt, and very important, that is property class of the bolts. Okay. So in this next video, we will continue with the types of bolted joints and their failure. Thank you.